written by Lee Hansen, Jim Cook, and Ron Thompson. Our stars included Linda Gary, Chuck Olson, Bruce Philip Miller, and Corey Burton, with special guest stars Clark Warren, Larry Moss, Herb Ellis, Joe Young, and Helen Funai. Associate producer Ron Thompson. Music director Tom Rounds. Engineer Stu Jacobs. Assistant to the producer Jim Cook. Alien Worlds was created, produced, and directed by Lee Hansen. And so until next week, this is Roger Dressler inviting you to join us for our next adventure, Earthlight, on Alien Worlds.
This is Lee Hansen. The next 2 episodes of Alien Worlds will not involve Starlab or our friends in the ISA. We're going to take you on a mystical journey through a science fiction fantasy adventure that explores the intergalactic origins of spiritual evil and how the inhabitants of the ancient planet of Alethea set out to neutralize that evil over 2,000 years ago. Here then are Olin Soule, Lorene Tuttle, Russi Taylor, and Roger Dressler in Part 1 of our special presentation, Earthlight.
Something silent fractures the Elysian midnight clouds, and they slowly puzzle apart, releasing the ghostly radiances of 3 white moons. Brilliant lunar light shimmers down onto Elysia's night side. Darkness dissolves as far north as the ion refineries at Lahilia, as far south as the Aviara Sun Tower complex, as far east as the Lusa Canal intersect, as far west as the domed wingship port at Darmus. Huge cloud fragments break away and drift past the moons. There is a sudden eclipse of light. Then the cloud fragments narrow to smoky splinters, curl up into the fluorescent winds of the aurora sphere, and vanish. The moonlight returns, intensifies, expands. It sweeps across the Starflight complex at Kalava, illuminates the celestial laboratories at Somari, seeps down into the Penumbrian shadow forest, and brightens the Pyramid of Deus, which rests at the forest's perimeter. A canal of dark water flows between the pyramid and the forest. Iridescent nova blossoms on the canal bottom sense the moonlight and rise to the surface, their translucent petals shimmering with color. Docked at the edge of the canal is a slender Elysian wind ship, its triangular sails folded, its 30-foot-long transparent metal hull low in the water. The huge main chamber inside the pyramid is illuminated by the pale yellow flames of 100 thick white candles. Moonlight streams in through the stained glass sky windows at the chamber's peak. Delicately woven tapestries and intricate mosaics decorate the angled walls. Beneath the sky windows sits Deus, the Father, Elysia's most highly evolved divine scientist. On the carved wooden table in front of him is an ancient voice book, its pages embossed with complex hieroglyphs. As he moves his fingertips over the hieroglyphs, the book voice tells him the future, reaffirming his dream about another expedition to the planet of Terralu.
A beautiful woman is blinded by visions of immortality and falls to sleep in a flower field. A star machine floats down into the scented voids of summer. A child is born. A healer of spirits walks across the deep currents of the faraway sea. The suffering are comforted. The dying are healed. The dead are reborn. The healer of spirits ascends to the stars. Terralu sinks below the fiery horizons of an alien sun. Faces look up. The sky stands still.
Terralu. So many expeditions. So little progress. So many of our sons and daughters lost. 1,000 years, and it's just beginning.
Deus?
Ah, come in and sit with me, Sibella.
Have you seen the sky, Deus? The clouds are gone and the moons are out. It's a perfect night for star flying.
Mm-hmm. The book said it would be.
Has the book reaffirmed that we're returning to the Veda sector of Terralu?
Yes, and it told me about the woman. Her name is Aram. She's young and strong and beautiful, and she's never known the Darkbringer virus.
Elishaba had never known the virus either. Do they share the same blood?
Yes. And because they do, the embryon child implanted in Elishaba during the last expedition and the embryon child of this expedition will share the times to come. The times to come. How are things progressing at Kalava?
The ship was moved to Dome 3 at sunset for fueling and ancillary pre-flight maintenance.
Has Aram's embryon child been taken aboard?
Yes. Lyria took him into the ship's nucleus chamber at moonrise. She's holding him in the secondary Genesis tank while Karmas finishes refocusing the convection lenses on the primary.
And what about Zuriel? Has he installed the new Paratron refractor?
He's still working on it. He would have finished by now, but there was a technical setback.
Oh?
When Zuriel examined the new refractor, he found that 2 of the waveform links were flawed. There wasn't time to send it back to Soma Ray, so he's correcting the flaw with a series of Nimbus filters.
Nimbus filters? I wasn't aware that such things existed.
They didn't until now. Zuriel synthesized them in the Spectrum Laboratory in Dome 6.
Is this the beginning of a new era in Alithian technology?
Well, Zuriel seems to think so. You know how he is when he does something especially inventive.
Yes. Yes, I know.
Deus.
Hmm?
When Aram's embryon child evolves to his final form and begins his work, will he be alone?
He will at first. But eventually there will be a multitude.
How will it end?
Tears, blood, a heart pierced with metal.
And what will become of us? Will we return to Elithia?
The book didn't know, Sibella. Where the journey back should have been, there was only silence.
Deus, was the book able to calculate the time lapse between our departure from Elithia tonight and our penetration of Terralu's gravity veil?
Yes, 11 solar days, 9 phenomeners.
When will we make contact with Aram?
3 phenomeners past sunrise on the morning of the 12th day. She'll be alone in a field near her village, gathering red and white flowers.
Red and white. Blood and purity.
Yes. The 2 elements that will haunt Aram to the end of her days. Well, it's getting late, Sibella. We'd better start for Kalava.
As Deus and Sibella walk down the luminescent gemstone path leading to the canal, a swarm of fluorescent blue spider moths stream out of the shadow forest, circle the canal's reflection of Elithia's 3 moons, and streak away into the flower-scented night. Sibella and Deus board Sibella's windship, move to the deep circular cockpit just behind the bow, and settle into thickly cushioned contour seats. Between the two seats is a narrow, transparent black systems console, its surface glittering with multiple rows of brightly colored control prisms. Sibella touches 3 of them, interfacing the wingship's guidance system with the Central Canal Link encoder at Darmus, the huge domed wingship port which lies 75 demivectors south of the pyramid.
Your request for automatic guidance parameters has been received, Sibella. Your vessel will proceed from the Avatar Pyramid tributary through the Lusaw Canal intersect to the Tanil Imbria tributary arch. Automatic guidance will be terminated and manual control returned as you pass beneath the arch and approach the Kalava subcanal.
Tiny levers fold open in the wingship's thin metal masts, releasing a quiet, magnetically generated wind which swells the translucent yellow sails. The small, graceful ship drifts out into the center of the canal, turns 45 degrees, and moves forward through the clean, clear water, nova blossom particles flaring in its wake.
Deus, what is calorescent spectrosite? I overheard Zuriel mention it to Karmas.
Spectrosite was the liquid light fuel that powered our first starships. We terminated its use long before you were born.
Why? Wasn't it efficient?
Yes, it was the perfect experimental fuel, Sibella. Efficient, highly unstable, and extremely dangerous. During the 3rd expedition, we killed 9,000 inhabitants of Terra Lu with it.
9,000? Deus, what happened?
An accident. A circuit malfunction caused a fuel bay hatch to open, and an armed spectrosite fuel pod was ejected. The pod exploded on impact between 2 wilderness cities that stood near the shore of a dying inland sea. When Karmas and Lyria went down in a lander to look for survivors, all they found was a young female in the nearby hills.
Was she alive?
No. Spectrosite radiation had transformed her into a pillar of white ionic stone. She stood like a statue, looking back at where the 2 cities had been.
The perimeter of the shadow forest slowly fades into the night as the wingship leaves the Avatar Pyramid tributary and sails out into the Lusaw Canal intersect, the vast artificial lagoon where all of Ilithia's equatorial waterways converge. Deus settles back in his seat, looks up at the 3 moons through half-closed eyes, and slowly wills himself into a memory trance. A chill surges through his body. The nuclei of his secondary blood cells divide, releasing the organically stored experiences of another time. Then a bright rushing sound only he can hear takes his mind 1,000 years into the past. Sunlight and warm winds touch his face. He glides over the sea of echoes in a small windship. In the bright, pale green distance is Raviva Island. On it stands the great white dome of Ilithia's Exobionic Observatory. The observatory has been receiving and analyzing scan tracings from 2 drone flyers, which are exploring the void of the 9 worlds in the far galaxy of Cerisius. Both flyers have discovered something unexpected and ominous. Diabas, the observatory matriarch, is concerned.
Have you confirmed it, Diabas?
Yes. Sit here beside me, Deus. I'll transfer the visual data to the wall screen.
An abstract 3-dimensional scan pattern fluoresces onto the large triangular wall monitor and slowly becomes a geological image of multi-layered earth and volcanic rock. Embedded in one of the layers are the mummified bodies of 3 nude humanoid women. Next to them are 5 black skeletons whose grotesque skulls resembled the heads of ebony gargoyles. Each skeleton lies against a secondary pattern of thin black bones, the bones of what were once large, bat-like wings.
Another world contaminated by Darkbringers. Is it a planet in this star system?
No, it's in the Sirius galaxy. Terralu, the only inhabited planet in the void of the 9 worlds. Drone flyer Septus began transmitting these substrata images 7 days ago.
Was it a full-scale invasion?
No, it was confined to a relatively small area near Terralu's equatorial meridian.
When did it happen?
19 light eons ago, just as Terralu was entering its 3rd neuroevolution. They lived in caves then, Deus, and ate the flesh of things that crawled and flew.
How large was the attack force?
1 Darkbringer Legion, probably an inquest unit. They invaded the cave settlement, killed the males and children, and then attacked the females. The same assault methods they used here, and on Anianus and Telluria.
Why didn't the assault extend beyond that one area?
The region was destroyed during the attack by a first-magnitude stratoconvulsion and volcanic eruptions. An enormous chasm breached open, and the entire settlement collapsed into it. The Darkbringer Armada was probably in an observation orbit during the assault, but when they saw the instantaneous destruction of an entire legion, I think they became frightened and moved out into deep space.
Yes, you're probably right. They always did become blind with confusion in the presence of unexpected planetary convulsions. Have the reproductive organs of the dead females been analyzed?
Drone flyer Erebus transmitted its scanner analysis last night. The bodies of all 3 females contain traces of calcified Darkbringer insemination fluid.
Have you received a retrospective survival projection?
Yes. According to the residual biotime scan from drone Erebus, there were over 800 female survivors. All of them inseminated during the assault. None of their newborns had any physical Darkbringer characteristics, but they all emerged from their parent mothers, saturated with the Darkbringer anti-light virus.
Has the virus evolved with them?
This morning, from an orbital distance of 300 nemavectors, drone Septus hemoscanned the entire population of Terralu. It saw the virus in the blood and bone marrow of every male and female, regardless of tribe or age.
And has the virus affected them in the same way it affected us?
There are variations, even some resistance at first. But in time, the virus flourishes, and the inner light grows dark.
Without any evolutionary interference from us, how much longer will the virus control Terralu?
A minimum of 500 centuries.
But by the end of that time, the entire Sirius galaxy would be contaminated.
There's only one choice, isn't there?
Yes, an expedition. We know the inner light can be resurrected through induced evolution meditations. We proved that here. We proved it on Anianus and Telluria. Diavus, do you see any reason why our spirit magicians couldn't teach the meditations on Terralu?
I see 2 reasons. The anti-light disease wasn't as advanced on those planets. And where Anianus and Telluria were both entering an age of radiance when the invasions came, Terralu is still hyper-primitive and superstitious. It would be impossible to land ships there without terrifying. Our teachers will have to come to Terralu from within, not from without.
Embryons.
Yes. Created from your blood and implanted in their females. It would take time. It would be difficult. It would be dangerous. But in the end, the virus would be neutralized. The light would be resurrected. And Terralu would no longer be divided against itself.
Terralu.
Terralu.
So many expeditions.
It would take time.
So little progress.
It would be difficult.
So many of our sons and daughters lost.
It would be dangerous.
1,000 years.
But in the end, the virus would be neutralized. The light would be resurrected. And Terra Lu would no longer be divided against itself.
The office.
Deus?
Isabella. I was just remembering an old friend, and 100 other nights like this, and 100 other expeditions. So much time has passed. So many of Alithia's sons and daughters have been lost. 1,000 years, and it's just beginning.
What did you do after the Dawnbringers killed your parent, mother, and father?
I escaped into the wilderness of Bas with a group of scientists and technical magicians from the city of Tialin. We thought we'd be safe there, but 3 days after the initial attack, Darkbringer annihilation squads began saturating the atmosphere and waterways with the virus. Eventually, we all became infected to some degree.
The effects of the anti-light disease have never been described to me, Deus. What actually happens?
It begins with an underlying discontent with the ceremonies and celebrations of life. Intelligence is corrupted. Emotion displaces logic. Imagination ceases to evolve. The ability to separate the symbols of existence from existence itself disappears. And so does the belief that all life is sacred. The effects are irresistible and inescapable, even in the unconscious sanctuaries of sleep.
How long were you in the wilderness?
25 years. Do you know the story of Vershila?
Oh, some, but not all of it.
Vershila was a mantric high priest who came to us in the wilderness during our 25th year of exile. He told us he had cured himself of the anti-light disease through a series of induced evolution meditations. He had discovered the meditations in the Persana ut Valiat Jewel, the ancient Alithian poem of creation. He taught us the meditations, and we healed ourselves. Then we went out from the wilderness and secretly taught the meditations throughout Alithia.
And the revolution against the Darkbringers began 50 years after that?
Yes. Our technical magicians built secret subterranean laboratories where they created ships armed with powerful liquid light injectors. 1 year after our ships rose up against them, the Darkbringers abandoned Alithia, and the Age of Radiance began.
As the winged ship approaches the Tanil-Imbria tributary arch, it passes a sun tower complex construction site on the lagoon's northern shore. Polished metal, saucer-shaped hover drones lower huge white sun tower obelisks onto thick pads of fluorescent synergite. Giant constructor tripods stand in front of the huge synergite blocks, their long, flexible arms coiled around the 400-foot-tall sun towers, guiding them into place. The complex is surrounded by multifaceted solar energy domes and power dispersion pyramids made of thick, white crystal.
Did you see Shiva today?
Yes, we walked in the forest this morning.
How does she feel about the new sun tower complex? It looks as though it's nearly finished.
She's delighted with its progress. The iron refineries at Lahilia and the floral hatcheries at Vianatet are already drawing power from it. She estimates it'll be fully operational in another 6 days.
We'll be halfway to Terra Lu in 6 days.
Sibella, are you concerned that the book didn't know if we'd be coming back?
What will become of us, Deus, if the ship should fall into a star?
The prospect of death doesn't disturb you, does it?
No.
No, I thought not. Then, what does?
Rebirth. Have you ever imagined what it would be like to be reborn on some other planet, one that wouldn't care about our secrets or understand our ecstasies or forgive our failures?
There's no such planet, Sibella. Not in this universe.
Inside his pyramid on the ancient planet of Ilithia, Deus, Ilithia's patriarch, listens as the voice of a sacred dream book reaffirms his sleep visions of another expedition to the planet of Terralu.
A beautiful woman is blinded by visions of immortality and falls to sleep in a flower field. A star machine floats down into the scented voids of summer. A child is born. A healer of spirits walks across the deep currents of the faraway sea. The suffering are comforted. The dying are healed. The dead are reborn. The healer of spirits ascends to the stars. Terralu sinks below the fiery horizons of an alien sun. Faces look up. The sky stands still.
Terralu. So many expeditions. So little progress. So many of our sons and daughters lost. 1,000 years, and it's just beginning.
Deus?
Oh, come in and sit with me, Sibella.
Has the book reaffirmed that we're returning to the Veda sector of Terralu?
Yes, and it told me about the woman. Her name is Aram. She's young and strong and beautiful, and she's never known the Darkbringer virus.
Elishaba had never known the virus either. Do they share the same blood?
Yes. And because they do, the embryon child implanted in Elishaba during the last expedition and the embryon child of this expedition will share the times to come. How are things progressing at Kalava?
The ship was moved to Dome 3 at sunset for fueling and ancillary pre-flight maintenance.
Has Aram's embryon child been taken aboard?
Yes. Lyria took him into the ship's nucleus chamber at moonrise. How will it end?
Tears, blood, a heart pierced with metal.
And what will become of us? Will we return to Ilithia?
The book didn't know, Sibella. Where the journey back should have been, it was only silence. Well, it's getting late, Sibella. We'd better start for Kalava.
At the edge of the wide canal that flows past the pyramid, Deus and Sibella board a slender, transparent metal windship and settle into the deep cockpit behind the bow. Touching 3 small fluorescent prisms on the control console, Sibella interfaces the windship's guidance system with Ilithia's central canal link encoder.
Your request for automatic guidance parameters has been received, Sibella. Your vessel will proceed from the Avatar Pyramid tributary through the Lusaw Canal intersect to the Tanil Imbria tributary arch. Automatic guidance will be terminated and manual control returned as you pass beneath the arch and approach the Kalava subcanal.
Half an hour later, the windship sails out into the Lusaw Canal intersect, the vast artificial lagoon where all of Ilithia's equatorial waterways converge. Deus settles back in his seat, looks up at Ilithia's 3 moons, and slowly wills himself into a memory trance that takes his mind 1,000 years into the past. 2 Ilithian drone flyers have been orbiting Terralu, the only inhabited planet in the void of the 9 worlds. During their 13th orbit, the 2 laboratory drones have discovered something unexpected and ominous. Deus is called to Ilithia's Exobionic Observatory, where scanner data from the 2 flyers is being decoded and analyzed.
Have you confirmed it, Diavas?
Yes. Sit here beside me, Deus. I'll transfer the visual data to the wall screen.
geological image of multi-layered earth and volcanic rock fluoresces onto the large triangular wall monitor. Embedded in one of the layers are the mummified bodies of 3 nude humanoid women and the remains of 5 long black skeletons. Each skeleton lies against a secondary pattern of thin black bones, the bones of what were once large, bat-like wings. The skulls resembled the heads of ebony gargoyles.
Another world contaminated by Darkbringers. When did it happen?
19 light eons ago, just as Terralu was entering its 3rd neuroevolution. They lived in caves then, Deus, and ate the flesh of things that crawled and flew.
How large was the attack force?
1 Darkbringer legion, probably an inquest unit. They invaded the cave settlement, killed the males and children, and then attacked the females.
Why didn't the assault extend beyond that one area?
The region was destroyed during the attack by a first-magnitude stratoconvulsion and volcanic eruptions.
Have the reproductive organs of the dead females been analyzed?
Drone flyer Erebus transmitted its scanner analysis last night. The bodies of all 3 females contain traces of calcified Darkbringer insemination fluid.
Have you received a retrospective survival projection?
There were over 800 female survivors. All of them inseminated during the assault. None of their newborns had any physical Darkbringer characteristics, but they all emerged from their parent mothers, saturated with the Darkbringer anti-light virus.
Has the virus evolved with them?
This morning, from an orbital distance of 300 nemavectors, drone Septus hemoscanned the entire population of Terralu. It saw the virus in the blood and bone marrow of every male and female, regardless of tribe or age.
And has the virus affected them in the same way it affected us?
There are variations, even some resistance at first. But in time, the virus flourishes, and the inner light grows dark. There's only one choice, isn't there?
Yes, an expedition. We know the inner light can be resurrected through induced evolution meditations. We proved that here. We proved it on Anianus and Telluria. Diabus, do you see any reason why our spirit magicians couldn't teach the meditations on Terralu?
I see 2 reasons. The anti-light disease wasn't as advanced on those planets. And where Anianus and Telluria were both entering an age of radiance when the invasions came, Terralu is still hyper-primitive and superstitious. It would be impossible to land ships there without terrifying. Our teachers will have to come to Terralu from within, not from without.
Embryons?
Yes. Created from your blood and implanted in their females. It would take time. It would be difficult. It would be dangerous. But in the end, the virus would be neutralized. The light would be resurrected. And Terralu would no longer be divided against itself.
Diabus.
Deus?
Ah, Sibella. I was just remembering an old friend and 100 other nights like this and 100 other expeditions. 1,000 years. And it's just beginning.
Deus, was the book able to calculate the time lapse between our departure from Elithia tonight and our penetration of Terralu's gravity veil?
Yes. 11 solar days, 9 phenometers.
When will we make contact with Aram?
3 phenometers past sunrise on the morning of the 12th day. She'll be alone in a field near a village, gathering red and white flowers.
Red and white. Blood and purity.
Yes. The 2 elements that will haunt Aram to the end of her days.
Deus, Sibella, you are now approaching the Taniel Embryo tributary arch. As you pass beneath it, automatic guidance will be terminated, and manual control of your windship will be returned. May the spirits of the 12 Lords of Light be with you on your journey to Daramu.
As the canal link override terminates, Sibella touches a control prism, which activates a triple row of bright rectangular lights in the bow. Then she steers the windship through the wide Tenille-Imbria tributary and enters the narrow Calava subcanal. A few moments later, the slim, transparent vessel glides across a small lagoon and docks at the edge of the Calava Starflight complex. The complex is a vast, circular plain, flawlessly paved with interlocking triangles of white gemstone and red fire crystal. Hundreds of hexagon-shaped lamps free float around the perimeter, focusing brilliant light on 6 enormous copper-colored domes, a triple row of sun towers, and the primary launch arena. At the Calava dock, Deus and Sibella secure their windship and board a small hover drone which takes them across the gemstone and fire crystal plain to Dome 3. Inside the dome's airlock, Deus and Sibella remove their long, dark cloaks and fold them into a small compartment in the wall. Later, they enter the dome's asepsis chamber and close their eyes and stand motionless as antiseptic light and sound sterilize their hair, skin, and outer garments. Then, a large circular hatch irises open in front of them, and they step through into the dazzling light of the dome's interior. In the center of the dome is Alithia's most powerful and complex starship, a huge ovaloid spacecraft created from organically grown metals. It rests heavily on 3 massive pneumatic parking spheres and dwarfs the 50 technicians who move over its seamless, polished metal surface. Parked in front of the starship are 3 teardrop-shaped tug crawlers, their transparent canopies slid open. 6 technicians string thin metal cables between the rear of the crawlers and towing rings on the ship.
What do the inhabitants of Daralu think happens to them after death?
They believe that if they live lives of kindness and affection, their dream selves transmigrate to the serenities of Empiria.
And if they live negative lives?
Then their dream selves transmigrate to the fires of Stygia.
But those regions were destroyed during the subvoid annihilations.
The Darkbringer archipelago had its genesis in the fires of Stygia long before the annihilations. But as life was evolving on its surface, the archipelago left its orbit and passed through Empiria. And in this passing, Empiria's light began to destroy the Darkbringer primitives. But they survived and continued to evolve under the delusion that physical and spiritual light were their deadliest enemies.
In the center of the starship's nucleus chamber, the primary Genesis tank floats 1 meter above the floor. Inside the transparent egg-shaped tank, suspended in a shimmering mist of chill vapor, is the tiny embryon child. He floats on his side, delicate fingers curled against his face, eyes closed, dreaming of the warmly scented summer voices that lie ahead, and the beautiful woman who will end the chemical winter in which he sleeps.
Just look at him, Sibella. He's beautiful.
He takes after his father, Deus.
Lyria, is 12 solar days still the maximum span he'll be safe in cryosleep?
I was able to extend it to 15 days by altering the inversion factor of the chill vapor crystals. But 15 is the zero-time maximum. Any longer, and the altered crystals will begin to neutralize his cellular divinity.
Zuriel, have you calculated our time to Terralu's gravity veil?
11 solar days, 9 phenometers.
Is that an absolute calculation?
Absolutely.
Why are you so amused, Deus?
11 solar days, 9 phenometers is precisely what the book said.
It also said we're returning to the Vita sector for an encounter with a beautiful young woman named Aram.
Zuriel, have you synthesized a copy of the book?
I don't synthesize books, Sabella. I only synthesize nimbus filters.
So I've heard.
Zuriel, how did you know about Aram in the Vita sector?
Aram's neuropulse is the only one in the bioindex terminal free of viral contamination. When I scanned the pulse, I found a first magnitude Vita sector imprint.
It seems you've finally become as wise as the book, Zuriel.
Zuriel, are we coming back from this expedition?
I don't know.
You're right, Lyria. He has become as wise as the book. It didn't know either.
Deus, may I see you for a moment?
Yes, Carlos. Where are you?
I'm in the system's index chamber.
Zuriel, you and Sabella go into the guidance chamber and begin the pre-launch procedures. Lyria, we'll have our usual talk after void entry. Is there a technical problem, Carlos?
No. The problem isn't technical, although technology was involved.
I don't understand.
I know we're returning to the Vita sector of Terralu, and I know the woman's name is Aram.
Zuriel?
No, I knew before Zuriel did. I was so curious to know where we were going that I got carried away and synthesized a copy of the book last night.
Carlos.
Yes, Deus.
Is nothing sacred.
Inside the dome, the 3 tug crawlers inch forward, tightening the thin towing cables that connect them to the ship. A huge section of the dome wall slides open. The tug crawlers move through the opening toward the brightly lit launch arena. Behind them, the giant starship rolls forward on its massive parking spheres. In the guidance chamber, Deus, Sabella, and Zuriel sit in cushioned pod chairs, facing a massive instrument console. Its dark metal surface alive with control prisms, regulator diodes, sequencer jewels, interface crystals, and iridescent decoder keys.
Start the pre-emanation cycle on the artificial gravity radiators, Sabella.
Interior gravity is stable at E.3. Grav factor links are sequenced to convert to E.9 during corridor penetration and E.12.1 at void entry.
Deus, an ion storm is forming in the penetration corridor over Illyria.
Carlos, we need a revised launch velocity.
Just a moment. A launch velocity of KPS .660 will take us through the storm before its primary spectrum collision phase.
KPS .660.
Sabella, engage the exterior hyperlight coils when we launch. Ion storms are too unpredictable not to take precautions.
Yes, Deus.
The ship is in position, Deus, and the towing vehicles have cleared the launch arena.
Engage the ancillary pulse drive reactor, Sabella.
Reactor engagement confirmed. Solar power matrix is stable at multiple sublinks 8, 18, and 80.
All ship register encoders, guidance optics, and inverter grids are hyperlinked and scanning.
Release the parking spheres, Sabella.
A hexagon-shaped hatch irises open in the bottom of the ship, and a huge gleaming tripod slowly telescopes down. Thick, Metal flex shock pads unfold from the tip of each tripod leg and press against the launch arena's white gemstone floor. The ship raises slightly, releasing the parking spheres which slowly roll away into the anchoring depressions at the arena's perimeter.
Pod chair emergency ejection hatches are armed. Pod chair floater cone nozzles are in phase.
REM scale time to launch is Tricon 0.3.1.
Retract the tripods, Zuriel.
The bright metal tripod withdraws into the ultraviolet glow of its storage bay, leaving the huge Elythian starship suspended 25 meters above the arena. 9 round ports iris open around the concealed tripod hatch, releasing thin beams of dazzling white light. Lurid exhaust vents blast raw magnetic waste against the arena floor, raising a translucent wave of fine white dust which rolls out over the anchored parking spheres.
REM scale time is terminated. Primary reactor interlock at binary 2.3.1.
Crimson hyperlight blink on around the edge of the ship. Then the huge spacecraft slowly rotates 90 degrees and begins its majestic ascent. At an altitude of 30 demivectors, the ship is a tiny ovaloid shadow at 9 pinpoints of light. At 120 demivectors, the starship banks 18 degrees, angles up, and races toward the penetration corridor over Illyria. Suddenly, a section of the corridor ceiling tears away, and a sucking vacuum of ionized winds lash out, trying desperately to draw the ship up into its crushing vortex. Then, as suddenly as it began, the crisis is over, and the ship accelerates out through Ilithia's shimmering aurora sphere into the starlit serenity of deep space.
Is our embryon child safe, Lyria?
Yes, dear. Safe and sleeping.
Have you decided what his name will be?
His name is the word the ancient thought magicians used to describe the power of the inner self. The word is Jesus, and it means I am become the healer of worlds.
Earthlight was written by Ron Thompson and starred Olin Soule as Deus, Lucy Taylor as Sibella, Mel Wells as Karmas, Byron Kane as Zuriel, Susan Silo as Lyria, and Lorene Tuttle as Diabas. Associate producer Ron Thompson. Engineer Stu Jacobs. Music director Tom Rounds. Assistant to the producer Jim Cook. Technical consultant Peter Sky. Alien Worlds was created, produced, and directed by Lee Hansen. And so until next week, this is Roger Dressler inviting you to join us for our next adventure, The Seeds of Time, from the elsewhere and elsewhen of Alien